Hey, so the first question I have for you, Governor, is start by telling me about the Show Me Strong Task Force, what it is you hope to accomplish from it.
Yeah, one of the things we really wanted to do is kind of revitalize an old committee that was on there that was put together. It hadn't even been utilized since 2008. And I thought it was really a good time to really reach out to the minority communities across the state to really see how they were affected in the small business arena and how we could really help with that. And I know we've had a lot of money to go into loans and different things to help small businesses, but I'd really like to dive into that a little deeper because we're going to get a lot more funding from the federal level. So what can we really do to that mom and pop shop out there? I want to say that whether it's a barber shop or a beauty shop or just a shoe store, whatever it might be, how do we really get down to that level? And hopefully by putting this group together, made up of business people from different areas, to give us a little bit more insight on how to best utilize some of those funds that'll be coming down.
Governor, why now and not, let's say, 6 months ago or even a year ago? Like, why now?
Well, I think it's just another tool we used. When it all first happened, everybody was focused on the COVID itself, on the illness itself. We really, about a month into the pandemic, got with the economic development director and said, look, you got to start preparing to go open this state back up. And how do we work in this state and how do we keep these businesses open? Because we know, as a small business owner myself, I used to be, if somebody told me to shut the doors for 60 days, the reality comes is how do you pay the bills? What do you really do? And how do you reopen? And how can you do that? So we asked them to do a plan on that, not knowing when COVID was going to be able to allow people to go back to work and it's different things. So we were developing that side of it. This is a little bit of a deeper dive now that we really know what the effect was, especially like in a hospitality area, lodging, again, those small businesses that we're really concerned that might not get an opportunity to open back up if we don't do something. So it's a little bit of a deeper dive into what we're doing right now.
So, Governor, this task force will be comprised and then it'll be dissolved, for lack of a better word, by the end of the year, and they'll bring their findings to you. You guys will figure out what to do. It's unfortunate, though, that in the interim, several of these businesses will shut their doors and some of them may never recover. What do you say to these businesses that will be in limbo while you guys try to figure this out?
I don't think there's any question that effect's going to be there. You could see that all along, that they were going to get hit the hardest. Things we try to do. We try to message to try to make sure people on the local levels trade with the businesses they can to survive what we can. But the reality is, I'm going to go back to what I just said earlier. If you're a business owner and all of a sudden you can't do business for, let alone 2 months, let's say you can do it for 6 or 8 months, there's no way you survive this. And I mean, we see that in the numbers, and that's why we're doing things like this, trying to figure out, one, how could we help them with the loans? But, a loan's okay, but it's still a loan. If you got to pay it back, that doesn't always help the bottom line of a business guy either. Now, if they're forgivable, that's another whole different thing. But I'm just telling you, a lot of those people that took advantage of some of the loans on the federal level and state level, probably works for some, but the very small businesses sometimes just don't get an opportunity to do that or can't get through the bureaucracy side of it. So that's really what this is about. It's really how do we really get in there and see what we can do to save the ones we can save. But the reality of it is when certain portions of the state were shut down, it's going to have an effect on those small business owners about recovering. And there's no way to sugarcoat that.
How can we tangibly measure this task force success?
I think one, let's see what the report comes back and then really look to see what we do on the state level. We know we've put a tremendous amount of finances at the state level behind workforce development, let's say, through training centers. How do we retrain people? And thankfully, we had that in place before the pandemic hit. And we've been able to rely on that because a lot of people that maybe work in a small business are going to have to go out and learn a different trade or different skill. So we have the things in place for that right now for those people. But it's the real business owner that's going to have to say, how are you going to help him? Are you going to help him get back in his business and open the door to a business that was going? Or are you going to have to retool and help them get into a better skill set, more education? What is it they want to do to carry on trying to pay for the family and keep things going? So those are the options we would really like to see. And then if I can get it done by the end of the year, financially, we can start preparing that in next year's budget, how to be able to help along with some of the COVID relief funds that we've got for the last 3 times. So the money, I'm going to say there's a lot of money coming down the pipes. I really just got to figure out what is the best use of that money and how do I really help somebody survive? That's the basic fundamental I got to first figure out. And then how do we take that one step after the other?
A lot of this is because of COVID-19, obviously, and now we're talking vaccinations. We just had a mass vaccination event here at Arrowhead, as I alluded to earlier when you were there, where nearly 8,000 people were vaccinated. How are vaccinations going across the state, in your opinion, and what can we do better? What have we done that you think is a huge success?
Yeah, you know what? I think getting the National Guard involved real early to help get into areas where we call our target vaccinators. So if we go into Kansas City or St. Louis, and they've been on the ground for probably 45 days now, going in some of the tougher neighborhoods that it's hard to get to, and they could take in there in the small teams to do that. And then frankly, it's been all along. I know there's been a lot of hype on it about rural area versus urban, certain percentages. The reality is you just didn't have enough vaccine to go around, and you had to figure out how do you distribute the best you can. But as you see what happened in Arrowhead, when the vaccine comes in, and we got a good supply of it, we can go do what I call a true mass vaccine or mega, whatever you want to call it. That's what we wanted to do all along, is be able to bring people into a facility like that and do 8 to 10,000 at a whack, to be able to get that done. But we continue to do that. Look, we're number one in the United States right now with the lowest positivity rate in the country. For COVID-19. So the things we've been doing all along are working for our state. We're number one in the United States. We're in the top 10 for second doses, which means we're getting it where the people need to get it, especially the most vulnerable people. And you've got some tremendous, I worked at county executive, Frank White up there, Reverend Miles up there. I mean, he's been a rock star up there. I mean, that guy's like on a mission. When you tell him we need to get more people to vaccinate, he goes out and he runs people down and calls people up and says, hey, you need to be here. But it's just a combined effort, and we continue want to partner. It's just we just need more vaccines. It's a simple answer to most of that. But I think for the most part, we're doing our part on the state level. Trying to get vaccine out there just as soon as we can. There is no reason in the world for any of us to delay vaccine getting in people's arms in our state, because at the long run, that's what we really got to do. So we focus on that every day. So we're going to continue to partner with the healthcare centers, the hospitals, people in the Kansas City area, but also make sure we're getting into the neighborhoods it's a little more difficult to get to. And that's where the National Guard can come in and help.
Rock out. So we're the lowest in percentage, which is a great thing. Is any of that due to a decrease in testing or people being tested in our area? Or is that kind of a moot point because we have the vaccinations going out?
Well, no, I don't think it's a moot point. I think we really got to encourage people to still be tested. I think the long game in this is to, one, encourage the vaccine and encourage the testing. It's pretty easy when the numbers start going down. Everybody says, okay, hey, I don't need to be tested anymore. And we see that. It's about half of what we were testing, over 100,000, has dropped down to about 50, 60,000 now. People are getting a little more relaxed. And I think that's our biggest worry, to make sure nobody knows where this thing's going to go a month from now, 60 days from now. Nobody knew what it was going to be like a year ago. We'd be in the position we are today. It's just such an unknown yet. So I really want to encourage people to take caution. Remember that we're not out of the woods on this thing yet. We got a long way to go, and you got to stay focused on doing everything we can to keep each of us safe.
Will the governor's office have its hand in perhaps hosting another mass vaccination event this side of the state?
Oh, most certainly. We'll be back up there in that area. We switched to St. Louis this week. We got some major ones going in St. Louis, but I feel very comfortable we'll be back in Kansas City to be able to do that in the near future. Again, it's just a matter of making sure you got all the partners in place. But as you can see now, I mean, a lot of the healthcare institutions up there with more vaccine coming, they're being able to do 1,000 doses, 500, 200. So that's all helping too. But if they call and says, hey, we got the people on the list, we got the place for you to go, I'll send the National Guard up there as soon as I can to make sure we meet that. That's what we want right there.
Indeed. Appreciate that. Governor, I'd be remiss to not ask you this while we're talking about national news as well. When you see what happened in Atlanta, what happened in Boulder, does it make you want to revisit any gun laws here in Missouri? How are gun laws here in the state, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a very conservative Second Amendment state. Missouri is. We've been down this road several times. Anybody hates to see what happened in Atlanta and what we're seeing across anytime you have these mass shootings in there. But again, there's lots of things behind a mass shooting of why they happen, what all the elements are. But I don't think it's so much as, everybody always goes to the gun issue right off the bat. But I think there's a lot of other things we got to talk about. You got to talk about mental health. You got to talk about what really instigated this and what was that? Was it hatred behind it? What was it? And I don't know all the details yet. So I want to be careful to speculate what the motives were. But on the other hand, I don't really care what the motives were, because when you go out there and kill people, you're going to have to be responsible for your actions. And that's it. But you also need to know what did occur for that. But it's unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. And we got to figure out, the violence that we're seeing in our state, whether it's in Kansas City or St. Louis, that was a real problem even before this crisis hit. We got to continue to do a better job in this state. And I got to figure out ways I can help from the governor's position to help those local entities and the local officers along and build partnerships to do that. You got to get people back in these communities on the ground. One of the things we did in St. Louis, I know working with the Urban League up there, is, we send these people that actually live in the neighborhoods to go out and help de-escalate crime. We know that's working. So I'd like to sure see that program expand to other parts of the state where the people that live in those neighborhoods, there's people out there willing to help you, but you got to go out there and reach out to them. And I think we've just failed to do that. And it's something I look forward to trying to build up that, because I know it works.
Indeed. Governor, what did you think of the president's comments and the president's proposal about the assault rifles and everything?
I don't guess I seen what the president said about it. I'm sorry, I didn't see what he said on.
Yeah, he's making the push for more gun reform, background checks, and banning of assault rifles.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had any comment on that.
When you start going down there, then it brings politics in it, and you got which we've seen this before many times. Again, I'm going to go back to why did the incidents occur in the first place, and what was the real issues behind all that. I think it's much more than having the conversation about guns, and I get that politically, but I think there's a lot more elements behind that. And I always think it's important. One of the things I learned from being in law enforcement 22 years, dealing with homicides, people around it, I think it's always important. Do you really want to change the needle in society? We can react to gun violence. We can react to mass shootings, and we will as they happen. But I'm going to tell you the real answer to all of this is through early childhood development. You want to change society? Change the kids. Figure out a way to help them to get an education and to get a job. And we'll talk about guns, I know now, for a long time, because this is a political scenario. But I'm telling you, we ought to be talking at the same time about what was the environment that all started all this as a child? What was that upbringing like? And did they have an opportunity of education and a job? I think that's all part of this conversation to be had. And I just believe if you want to change society as a whole, it has to be through early childhood education. And I don't think there's any way around it. I think whether it's healthcare, whether it's crime, whatever it is, as we all get older, if you're not fixing it on the front end, you're kidding yourself if we're going to fix it on the back end.
Governor, I certainly appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to add? I kind of want to circle back and make sure we covered everything about this task force. Is there anything else you want to add? Did I miss anything in terms of its mission and what we hope to accomplish from it?
No, I think the big deal is we want to help some of the people that normally we're trying to outreach to people that normally don't have the ability maybe to get through some of the channels, some of the other businesses, prominent businesses been there. Again, as a guy that me and my wife used to run gas stations, I know what it's like to be in a small business and what it takes to meet payroll. Those are the kind of people I'm really trying to target to this task force, to reach out to them and says, hey, what really would make a difference to you if we did have the funding, we did have the resources? What's the best way for me to do that? Not what I think is best, but what do they really think? And that's what I hope this task force will accomplish. And it'll definitely be a working task force because they're under a short window of time to get something done.
All right, Governor, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for spending the last 15 minutes with me.
All right, no problem. Have a good day. Thanks.
You too, sir.